Hello, everyone. Welcome. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Meaghan, and I am the founder behind Florentis Learning. Today, we're diving into one of the most challenging and most transformative parts of teaching English, helping students master grammar with clarity and confidence. Whether you're teaching young beginners or advanced adults, this webinar will give you some practical strategies that you can use immediately. And it'll also give you insight into our brand new grammar lessons from Florentis Learning. So with that, if you are here, please let me know in the comments. I'm always curious to know who's here and where you are watching from, and I can say hello. So if you're here, please just drop a note in the comments and let me know that you're watching. So with that, I am going to share my screen, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, and away we go. So all right. Oops. That's not what I'm doing. All right. So as I said, I'm Meaghan. I am from Florentis Learning, and I'm the founder behind it. I've been teaching online since 2017 and taught in the classroom for many years before that. I am a licensed Canadian teacher, and with my classroom and my online teaching experience, I am in your shoes. I teach still most mornings children in China. And so I understand what it's like to really need resources that work, that are ready, and are engaging for your students. I have a Bachelor of Education and a Master's of Education in Curriculum Studies, with a specific focus on best practices in online teaching and learning. So today we'll cover 5 key topics to help you become a more effective grammar teacher in online ESL classes. So first, we're going to explore why grammar can be so challenging to teach, especially across different age groups and proficiency levels. Next, I'll share some proven teaching strategies that work great in virtual classrooms, like visual anchors, props, and side-by-side comparisons. And then I'll walk you through 2 real stories from my own classroom, how targeted grammar instruction transformed learning for both a beginner child and an advanced adult student. And after that, I'll give you a detailed look at the new beginner and intermediate grammar courses, which have been designed specifically for online ESL teachers. And finally, I'll show you how to access free sample lessons that you can start using in your classes right away, including samples from our grammar curriculum. So by the end, you'll discover how to simplify your entire teaching year with these ready-to-use resources. So let's start with you. What grammar topic do your students struggle with most? So just take a moment to share in the chat or the comments. Your experiences will help to shape our conversation today and also help to guide future curriculum development. So there are no wrong answers. Every struggle you share represents countless other teachers facing the same challenges. And if you're here, again, drop a note in the chat. And I would love to hear from you so that I can say hello and acknowledge that you're present. All right. It says I have a few people here, so I'm just not hearing from you yet. There's often a delay between the chat and what I see too, so that could be part of it. So why is grammar so hard to teach? And it's really for a couple of reasons. One of them is really that we have different age groups that we're teaching, and they all have different needs. So young kids rely on patterns and repetition. They aren't as used to specific rules, and the rules don't necessarily stick. Now that is culturally dependent, and sometimes with some of our Chinese students, they really like rules and they will figure out how to apply them, but then they forget to use them when they're speaking. So young learners, however, do acquire language naturally, but they need that visual support to understand the why behind what they're saying. With teenagers, they often just won't ask. So they hide their confusion to avoid embarrassment, especially if you're teaching a small group class. I have a group class with just 4 learners in it, and sometimes I know that they don't know, but they won't necessarily ask why something is the way it is. So they might just nod along and sort of keep those fundamental misunderstandings that really prevent them from really mastering it. And adult learners, and I would put myself in this boat as a French second language learner, they frequently plateau without structured practice. So you get so far and you can certainly communicate, you can have a conversation, you can do the things at work, but you still continue to make those same mistakes. And conversation alone doesn't correct deeply formed habits or fossilized errors. And then just really curriculum gaps. So lots of ESL curricula emphasize vocabulary and conversation, but they don't necessarily teach grammar explicitly, leaving teachers to fill in the gaps on their own. And in the core ESL curriculum, we do include grammar, but I know I find with my students even that sometimes for some of them, it's enough, right? But for others, they really need some explicit practice and some focus on specific grammar concepts. So let's talk about one of my learners. So this is Phoebe. Phoebe is 7 years old and she's a Chinese student. She was a beginner English learner that started with me from nothing, right? And she was really struggling with demonstrative pronouns. So this, that, these, and those. We tried different approaches like using props and pictures, but she just couldn't grasp when to use each one. And so just last week, actually, I tried out the new grammar lesson from our beginner grammar unit on this, that, these, and those. And this one really focuses on that near versus far. And so we explicitly teach near and far as vocabulary words, and there's identification with matching pictures and all those types of things of whether something's near or far. And then we jump over to the this, that, these, and those, and it clicked, right? So she could explain the concept, she could choose the right demonstrative, and she could use them then confidently in answering the speaking questions. So this transformation happened really because the lesson finally made that abstract grammar concept concrete and visual for her. She didn't memorize the rules, and we had done lots of practice in the food and food groups unit. It just didn't work. And so this does show the power of really structured, purposeful grammar instruction that helps students deeply understand the language. So that brings us to my first teaching tip. So when you're teaching grammar, you need to make it visual for beginners, not just telling them rules, but showing them the differences. You can use physical props and movement to create memorable connections. You can establish things like this near and far zone in your teaching space and return to those anchors repeatedly during practice. You can show correct and incorrect examples side by side to help learners identify differences faster. And we want to keep our rules really simple, child-friendly language to explain grammar concepts and avoid complex terminology. So tell me, do you have a Phoebe? Do you have a strategy that you've used that's made something really click? If you're watching, let me know in the comments what works for you. And if you happen to be catching the replay, share those ideas anyway, because I'm always looking for new ideas. So every teacher does. You've got these creative strategies for making this specific grammar concept really concrete. Maybe you've got, special flashcards, or you draw something on the whiteboard, or you've got, hand gestures you use. Make sure you share those ideas because you might inspire another teacher who's facing the same challenge. And you can always share those in our online ESL Teacher Hub on Facebook, and I will drop the link into the description for the video after the webinar. So verb tenses. So this is like a universal struggle. I don't know how many of my intermediate learners I specifically say, you go, like go, and they're like, oh, sorry, went, right? Or see, and I sort of reinforce that and make them question what they said and think about it, and they know the rule and they know how to fix it, but they still make mistakes with verb tenses even when they know the vocabulary words. So this isn't a vocabulary issue, it's a grammar issue that requires targeted practice to improve. And so this happens across all ages, across all skill levels. And I think my pet peeve one is I have to write my homework, right? And I'm like, we don't write homework in English. I don't know how many times I have said that. If you've said that, let me know in the comments. But addressing these grammar challenges directly can lead to rapid improvements in accuracy. And so one of the ways you can do that is with before and after. And sometimes I physically type what the student said in the chat or put it on the whiteboard. And this gives me that side-by-side comparison. So on the left, you see the before example with grammatical errors. On the right, an after version highlights corrections in green, showing the learner exactly what changed. And if you pull up your whiteboard and you actually put these things right on there, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I know what the mistake is. But you have to do that repeatedly. It requires repeated practice in order to really integrate that into their conversational skills. But this visual contrast can help to build confidence. It reduces the fear of making mistakes, which is especially helpful in online learning environments. And those annotation tools or the colored boxes or colored text make it really clear and easy to understand the difference. The goal is to guide learners towards the right way of expressing themselves rather than just pointing out errors. And so in all of the beginner grammar lessons, actually, we have a page that's specifically focused on this guided grammar discovery and to sort of to think about what sentences have in common or what the differences are. And you can certainly grab your annotation tools and you can circle things and you can draw those ideas out of your students. So my second story is Pedro, and Pedro is an advanced speaker. He's been in Canada, in the United States rather, for 5 years. He lives and works full-time in English. You know, he has pretty good English, and despite his high level of English, he still felt he had room for improvement and specifically requested grammar lessons, quizzes, and structured practice. And his request really inspired the creation of the intermediate grammar course, which helped him improve his accuracy, confidence, and his communication in professional settings. This had immediate positive impact. And the way it's sort of set up is that there's practice and then there's speaking. So we practice a concept and then we apply it to speaking questions. And this helps him make his presentations, his conversations more professional and more polished. And so this really demonstrates how even advanced learners can benefit from focused grammar instruction to eliminate small errors and achieve true fluency. So don't just assume that they know it. And this is sort of my next teaching tip. We often assume that, oh yes, they're an intermediate learner. They've been doing this for a while, right? They know the rules. They know, what they're supposed to do and say. And that's just not necessarily the case. They appear confident, right? And they might even be able to do a grammar exercise really well, but they might not understand why. And so these mistakes that have been repeated thousands of times become these automatic fossilized patterns. And they're very difficult to break through conversation alone. So advanced learners benefit greatly from explicit grammar instruction, and they have that cognitive maturity to really understand the metalinguistic explanations. So structured quizzes and controlled practice exercises help learners identify their weaknesses and measure progress, which does reduce their frustration because they know then that they're speaking better and that they're writing better. I know for me, I am very much in my French, I'm quite confident to speak in French, but I also know I make mistakes. And I sort of justify it in that when I say, oh, yes, well, when English second language learners speak, they make mistakes too. If you speak a second language, let me know in the comments. sort of how you feel about that. Like, are you confident and you just make the mistakes with confidence, which is sort of my approach? Or are you more like, hesitant to speak because you're afraid of making mistakes? And I think we've got students who fall on both sides of those things. But these structured quizzes and controlled practice activities really help them move forward, right? It reduces that frustration. And so making sure that you don't assume that they know it is really, really critical. So what if grammar didn't require hours of extra prep? Grammar teaching becomes exponentially easier when you have ready-made level-appropriate lessons at your fingertips. So imagine opening your teaching platform and finding everything you need: anchor charts, practice activities, speaking prompts, writing tasks, all designed specifically for online ESL instruction. So no more searching for worksheets, no more cobbling together activities from multiple sources, no more wondering if your lesson will actually work. Just comprehensive, tested, effective grammar instruction ready to teach. And so those of you who are founding members of Florentis Learning, you've probably already noticed in your course list that you have access to these. I released them last week. The intermediate grammar course we released probably a month or so ago, and then the beginner grammar course just appeared last week. And so some of you might have already tested it. If you've seen them or you've looked at them, then drop a note in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. But let's really dive into the beginner grammar course. And I'm going to show you, I'll share my screen and I'll show you exactly what a lesson looks like. But there is a free lesson available for you in our Florentis free sample pack. So if you haven't grabbed that, I'll put the link in the description for the video. And I'll also drop the link in the chat for you as well. But essentially, you're just going to go to florentislearning.ca. You'll click on memberships and choose the free option. And you will be taken right to it. It's hard for me to type and speak. Sorry about that. So back to sort of this beginner grammar. So this is really designed for young learners, probably age 5 to 10 is the most appropriate. It covers essential grammar topics, so demonstratives, adjectives, verbs. So it's got it's just a lot of fun. Now, if you're teaching and using it and you're like, oh, I really could use a lesson on this, by all means, reach out. I'm completely open to feedback. I'm open to adding to it. Right now, it consists of 2 units of 6 lessons each for a total of 12 lessons. These are structured to fit that 20 to 25-minute class period, depending on your student. And they include visual aids, practice activities, and writing tasks. So the curriculum is designed to sort of work with that pre-A1, A1 level, and really works best for upper level 1, but more level 2 students, and even into early level 3 students. So there are a variety of activities, there's games, there's all sorts of things in there to engage the young learners. And so inside that, you'll see visual anchor charts, you're going to see guided practice slides, there's writing, and there's listening. So with that, let me just jump right over into a beginner grammar lesson. So when you come in, one of the first things that you're going to notice, I'm going to go with this one, I think, is it sort of looks a little bit squished. The template's changed. Just come down to the bottom and click full screen. And this is not quite as good within my sharing here, but I think it works and you get the picture. So a couple of things that I'll highlight. We have the top. If you have a new student and it's filled, just click new student. But when you reload the page, it will reload. So you get the choice of stars, you have medals, or there are soccer balls, each with different sounds. And then up here at the top, you do have a menu so that you can jump through the slides. So if you only do part of it, you can just simply jump through. This one, these use Emma, who's the girl with the brown hair, Leo, who is the boy with the dark brown hair, and then Sam, who's the boy with the blonde hair, and then Mrs. Kim. So you'll see the same characters throughout these lessons. We start with just a quick warm-up song similar to our others, and then we get into our vocabulary. So this one has tomorrow in it. This one is introducing future plans, and it also has the idea of a plan. Now, as I said, it does fit much nicer when you're full screen and you don't have sort of restream around it and sort of blocking my sharing. So my screen has got about, I don't know, a third of it taken up by all of this paraphernalia around me. So I'll make it a little bit bigger just so you can see. So when you are sort of in that regular mode, you won't have that scrolling necessarily, but you do always have that scrolling if you need it. We've got some picture matching. So this one, we can choose it's play. And this one, we're going to see, oh yes, it's visit. So these are all words that they probably will know, but it's just an opportunity before we get into the lesson to really reinforce that. And so you're going to do all of the things, and there's run, and then there's a check. And if we can continue on, you'll notice that we have a story. So as I said, it adjusts automatically to the size of the space that you sort of give it. And so anyway, it is better when it's not chopped off and by a third. So we've got this story, and this is focused on like going to, I am going, like be verb going to, am going to, are going to, all of those things. He is going to. And so we see that application in the story, and then we get in and we have just a few check for understanding questions. So when is Mia going to visit her grandmother? She's going tomorrow. What is Sam going to cook? I don't remember. I think it was pancakes, actually. And what is Leo going to start next week? We would check our answers, and it tells us that all of our answers are correct. We've got some true and false. And of course, we can give our stars as we go. And then we're practicing with I am, she is, they are, he is, we are. This is something that was in an earlier lesson, so they should know their be verb. And then this is that grammar discovery slide that I was talking about. So we're looking at these. You can get your pen out and you can sort of make some notes. You will notice that there is this hat here. These are teacher tips. So you can see that we've got just a tip for using this screen. They're not available on all screens, but they're available on most screens. Then we have our nice anchor chart where we can really sort of talk about what the rules are. And then we've got practice. And so again, we are filling in the blanks. And we've got some additional practice and some more practice. And then this one is a writing screen, and I wish I could make this proper size, but anyway. So we're writing 4 sentences about future plans. And what you'll notice at the bottom is we've got some chips. So this is really designed to make things faster so that it's not like this big long typing. So if we wanted to say, okay, what are you going to do this weekend? This weekend, and you'll notice it immediately puts it up here, right? I am going to play the piano. So you don't have to type as many words. So these are things that are super useful. And then we have this dialogue, sort of this phone dialogue chat. We've got some questions that we're now applying our learning concept through speaking. We've got some listening activities.
Mia, what do you usually do on Saturdays?
I usually play in the park with my friends.
And what are you going to do tomorrow?
Tomorrow, I'm going to visit my grandma at her house. We're going to have cake and talk together.
That sounds fun. So you're going to visit your grandma tomorrow?
Yes, I'm going to visit my grandma.
And so there's a listening activity, and then you choose the picture that goes with it. And we've got 3 of those. This one is using just talking with some questions, and this one, it's much more fun when it appears properly. So essentially, you click explore, and we get a pronoun and a picture. So Sam is going to do his homework tomorrow. And when it's correct, we can give them an Explorer badge. And you'll notice the little Explorer badges appear up top. And then we have our homework and future plans activity. So each of these lessons does have a homework activity. And then we have our goodbye song. So I'm just going to exit full screen, and you'll see even here it looks a little bit better on the smaller screen. Maybe I should have done it that way. You can also always close the thing on the side. And if you want your side menu back, you just come up here and click course content. But that X often sometimes helps. But if you are doing this just in your regular window, it looks great. I've used it multiple times. And so you've got your games and all of those things. So this gives you a bit of an idea sort of what those lessons look like. And if you are watching, let me know what you think. I'm just going to bring my slides back for a second. And we're going to next take a look at the intermediate grammar course. So this is really A2, probably B2 really, B1, B2. And this is for teens and adults really ready to master intermediate structures and achieve exam readiness. So we cover all of the major tenses, modal verbs, passive voice, comparatives, gerunds and infinitives, and articles. And to give you an idea, and I will just pull those up, they do look differently than our beginner lessons. Of course, our beginner lessons have lots of pictures and are lots of fun for kids. These ones are definitely a different appearance. And so just let me switch my screen share again. So this one, I do have my sidebar collapsed, and I would strongly encourage that. So just click the X to collapse that. And you'll see that we have sort of that reviewing present and past tenses. And so this is the very first one. We're getting into sort of a review of when we use these different types. And when I'm doing it, I do come back up to focus on that. You'll notice that there is a grammar quiz. So this grammar quiz has 12 questions. You work through it, you check them. There is a hint if we need a hint, and you can hide the hint by clicking it again. And then we have 3 questions for speaking. Now, if you are, if the student is struggling for an answer, then you do have the option to show an example. And then you can hide it again and challenge them to come up with their own. And then if you come down, we do have sort of this pause for 25 minutes. But if you're doing a 50-minute class, so I use these on Amazing Talker, which are 50 minutes usually, I have a second grammar quiz and additional speaking practice. And then I just have a link to some additional resources that I'll just copy the link and share it with my student. So if we take a look, as I said, we've got core content, we've got all sorts of verb tenses. We get into modals and conditionals. We get into sentence structure and sentence form, and we've got reported speech and conjunctions and conducting ideas and all of those things. And we've got some stuff on phrasal verbs and articles and quantifiers and all of sort of everything. Now, this is, I've been teaching it in order and it's worked fine. But you also don't have to teach this in order, and you don't have to teach the beginner grammar in order. Really, it is up to you. It's your classroom, whatever works best. For me, I think for the beginner grammar, I'm going to probably use it as teaching like through a number of lessons, and then I'm going to use it to help reinforce a concept. So I might pick and choose. I do have one student who's preparing for an exam, and I probably will work through the grammar lessons in order with them just to give them that extra practice. because it still has reading and writing and listening in it. But it is something that we can do sort of a little bit of everything. So hopefully that's given you some ideas and some tips on things that you can use and teach. So remember, if you haven't grabbed our free lessons yet, hop over to florentislearning.ca and click on memberships and choose the free tier. If you have already joined Florentis Learning, thank you. I'm so happy to have you here. And please let me know when you try the lessons, how they go for you. If you have ideas, requests, all of those things, happy to accommodate, as many of you know. And if you have requests for other lesson types, so the intermediate grammar came because of Pedro, and he was one of my students and I needed something, but the beginner grammar came because a teacher asked me for it. So if you have requests, by all means, reach out and ask. I'm happy to sort of do what I can. I really want to build something that meets your needs. And if you are catching the replay, drop replay in the comments. Let me know that you were here, and have a fantastic day and happy teaching. Hopefully I will see you again soon. I am going to be doing a Christmas webinar very shortly, just with some holiday teaching ideas. And there are some holiday lessons available already. I also want to do one to just talk a little bit about some of the rewards, and for the holidays, the lessons that have that new reward feature, click through that button. Something special is going to appear soon for you. You'll have some options that are holiday specific in that reward section. So with that, have a great day. Thank you for joining. And don't forget to reach out by email, in the comments, on Facebook, sort of in school, if you're in school, whatever.